huge. It's it's and the funny thing is the border it goes all around Sweden and Finland up until Russia. See that?
Oh yeah, a little bit of Russia.
Yeah. So that's if you are used to looking at the map, you don't really zoom in on that part, but then you see that the Norwegians kind of stole the north coast from the Swedes. So I saw a discussion about this actually on Reddit, and there were people asking Norwegians why this is, and the explanation apparently is that the traditional Swedish and Finnish people lived inland, so they kept the areas where they lived, um, and the Norwegians were more uh, living on the coast, so they kept the coast, which sort of makes sense if it's true. I haven't verified it, but it sort of makes sense. And there's also some friction between Norway and Sweden because they had some overlap in well, there was some struggle between the Vikings, I guess. We could all see that on the television series. So yeah, I think we were not specifically in the rural areas, but even though we were still in the southwest of Norway, it's not that populated, and the towns and villages are separated quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah. So the towns and villages, are they further apart from each other, or
Yeah, I think the reason that is because the fjords they 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 were formed in the ice time, and apparently there was like 1,000 meters of ice back in the ice age, and so now you have these very steep slopes where even trees can't grow, so you can't live there. And then in the valleys, you have areas with water and some land area. So basically, every town and every village is on that little bit of land area. So every time you cross a mountain ridge, usually by tunnel, because they in Norway they have like 900 tunnels, and if you want to go from the one side to the other side, you can go over the top with a mountain road, which usually in the winter is closed. So they made a lot of tunnels to go from the one side to the other side, and then you find a town or a village basically in every um, area where there is some flat land. There were not many villages on top of the mountains because of the climate. There's a lot of snow in the winter, and some of these areas are even frozen all year long with glaciers, which is an amazing sight. It was beautiful to see. And, so the nature and the way those fjords are formed is very impressive. I haven't seen
how
anything
did,
like it.
how did they find so many people to build tunnels
Uh,
with
I don't know. I
four or
think
5 million population?
uh, well, I think it's not per se about the people, but also about the money. I mean, making tunnels is not cheap. But
Yeah.
in the 60s and 70s, they started to find a lot of natural resources like gas and I think also oil, and they started selling that, and they earned a lot of money with that. And most of that money is transferred to a fund, and that fund is being used to invest, and the results from the investments are being used to support the Norwegians. So they basically didn't spend the actual money they earned with selling the natural resources, but they invested it, and results from the investments are being used to improve the country. So I guess that money made its way into infrastructural projects like drilling tunnels. And I guess before you have 900 tunnels, you might have a permanent team of tunnel builders and tunnel maintainers. Um, So part of the trips we had in that fjord area, you was just driving through tunnels, and then sometimes you saw a little bit of daylight, and you go in another tunnel, and then they have the longest road tunnel in the world. It's like 24 kilometers.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's like almost half an hour driving in the
Do
same
you,
tunnel.
do people just get paranoid in the middle of the tunnel and scared of moving forward or going back because they've been through the tunnel for too long?
Yeah, I don't really like tunnels, so I wasn't really happy to go through all the tunnels, but it's like exposure therapy. There are so many tunnels that after a while you forget you're driving in tunnels, and then you even forget it's daylight, and then you come out of the tunnel and it's all bright because you've been there so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the most tunnels are yeah I think the range between 2 and maybe 7-8 kilometers where yeah, you see that a lot. That's not uncommon. And most of the tunnels, they have some sort of lining inside, but sometimes it's just the rock. So you see the inside of the mountain basically, which is all rock. Um, but I do think that
Did you drive from the Netherlands to Norway?
yeah, but we took a boat. So the first
Okay,
week
yeah,
was
I
from the
I
Netherlands
could
to
not see a land,
no
direct land from the Netherlands to Norway.
no so driving is possible if you go to Denmark, and Denmark and Sweden are connected with a bridge and a tunnel. So you drive from Denmark to Malmo, I think, in Sweden, and then you can cross Sweden to Norway. So if you don't want to take a boat, that's possible. You can also drive to the north of Denmark and take a reasonable short boat trip to Norway. I think that takes you maybe 4 hours or something. I'm not really sure, but that's not very long. And then there's also the option of going to Kiel in the north of Germany, south of Denmark, and then go on a ferry, and that takes around 20 hours to reach Oslo. Um, and you can take your car on that ship with you. And then the ship is like a bit like a cruise, so it has shops and restaurants and entertainment and a sun deck and swimming pool and everything like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's also nice. So we took that trip, and then yeah, you go to bed, and in the morning you have breakfast, and then you're done with breakfast, you go back to your car, and the ship arrives in Oslo, and then you have the rest of the day to spend in Oslo. Yeah,
Cool.
that's a very relaxed way of traveling. Driving through Germany wasn't really that relaxed, but the road work was happening again. So German autobahn is mostly yeah road work.
On the highways?
Yeah, around Hamburg and Bremen, it was very busy, many traffic jams. Also in the middle of the day. So yeah,
I see.
yeah, yeah, and then yeah, Norway is unique. It's their own Scandinavian culture, and then the nature. So a lot of hiking, and you don't go there for the nice weather because they don't really have that often.
So is it very cold up there?
I think for what we were doing, having adventurous holidays. So the coldest area we were in, the mountains was around 5 degrees in the morning, and during the day it would be around 13, 14 degrees. Most of the time it was somewhere between 10 and 20 degrees during the day.
But is it dry? There's no rain or anything.
No, first few days we had a little rain, and later we had some rain some days. sometimes some showers, you know.
Yeah.
So for the Norwegians, it wasn't a great summer either. So they struggled with some rain as well. But yeah, it was fine. You know, if you go to Scandinavia in the summer, that you can get wet. So there is some chances on rain. So and you had some time off as well last week. So did you guys
It
go
was
anywhere?
just a public holiday, so they just relax at home.
Nice. No middle of the night conferences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because none of our listeners, watchers know that, but since we're separated from time zone, it's now the middle of the night for you and the morning for me. It's not ideal per se. But you still get up every night to work in Asian time zone?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, okay. Nice. Yeah. Interesting stuff. I when I was in Norway, I was also thinking about living there, how that would be. And I think because when we got off the boat and I was driving around Oslo to find my way, I just noticed Norwegians are not in a hurry. It's just everyone is behaving calm. So if you come out of the traffic in the Netherlands or in Germany, it's rushing and people are behind you, sticking to your car because they want to pass because they are in a hurry. And then you drive in Oslo and no one does that. It's just
I'm, I'm also guessing housing will be cheaper there.
in Norway.
Norway, yeah.
No, it's very expensive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I think
They have a lot of land.
yeah, but everything in Norway is expensive. So housing is expensive, and the fuel is expensive, and the groceries are expensive.
More than the Netherlands?
To a certain extent, yeah. I think housing they have the same issue as we have in the Netherlands or in many European countries. Demand is higher than the amount of available housing, so somehow building hasn't kept up.
How is that possible? Because they managed to construct 900 plus tunnels, but they forgot to build houses.
I think there are houses, but there. I mean, it's a market idea. So if there's a lot of demand and there's not a lot of available houses, then it's expensive. And if you want to build a new house, you'll have to start a project. And I'm not entirely sure why in Norway housing is also expensive because yeah, you're right. There's a lot of more space, and I mean most houses are built from wood, and well, I saw like millions of trees. So it's not like they don't have wood. I know you can't use everything because you won't have wood after that. But I saw wood cutting happening everywhere, and I think they have a way of letting the forest regrow. So that's fine. But also, the construction materials was very expensive. I mean, I bought some wood to burn in a stove just in the supermarket, and it was the same price as it is here in the Netherlands. While we're probably burning the same wood as they're burning there. So somewhere along the line, there's a very large price increase. I can imagine that when the salaries are very high, that
Yeah, I
labor
was about
costs.
to ask that if the salary is quite high.
Yeah, it is. There's a very high living standard, so salaries are high. So I can imagine that building a house costs labor, and that's expensive. So,
Mhm.
but if you look at the house pricing from a few decades ago, you also see a price explosion in Norway. So it's not just that. It's because existing houses were built by people with a lower salary, right? So I can imagine new houses are built with expensive people, and because of the laws around alcohol, The buying alcohol is extremely expensive. For most liquor, you need to go to a separate store, and especially vegetables. It's interesting. It's very expensive compared to the Netherlands, but to maybe no one's surprise, most of the vegetables you can buy in Norway comes from the Netherlands, for example. So yeah, I can imagine if you have to get a cucumber from the Netherlands to Norway, it makes the cucumber more expensive. But
Yeah,
I think one of the highest prices I saw was a red pepper, sweet pepper, for like €7.5, which would probably cost around 90 cents in the Netherlands. So, but some other products weren't that expensive. I think fish, like salmon, was a bit more cheaper than it is here because yeah, the fish is being caught and comes from Norway itself. Interesting times.
I'm checking the house price in Norway, and it's really not expensive.
Right.
It's
Depends on where
the
you look, I
median
guess.
is 160K, and the highest price I'm looking at is around, it's less than 300,000 USD.
Yeah, but if you checked in the area of where people live, or are you checking completely in the north where only polar bears live?
Um, this website is just using.
I was checking in Oslo or in where
Okay, let me check also.
it was a little bit more expensive, like a lot. Because I mean, in the Netherlands, you can also buy a house under 200K, but then you live in an area where no one wants to live, so you will be living alone. But it's possible. There are cheaper houses, not much, but there are some.
Okay, yeah. In Oslo is mostly living
But
for
if
a
you
four
yeah,
bedroom.
if you want to live off the grid, like far away from everyone and anyone, it's a cheaper option, I guess.
Well, that means you're a millionaire, a billionaire, right? To do upgrade.
Hmm.
You have your own island to yourself.
Yeah. Well, I I somehow assumed that it would also be a bit cheaper, but you see in Scandinavia as a whole that the house prices is also has also been increasing, but it's in the whole of Europe basically. So it's going to be interesting. And in the Netherlands, the house market has gone berserk. It's completely insane. So even though the house pricing the last 10 years already exploded, we see another bump in price increase because there's a shortage of so many houses, and you still don't see a
Yeah,
lot of building projects going on.
yeah, I see that's a huge crisis in the Netherlands. I was also reading a lot of stuff on Reddit where people have to bid to rent a house or apartment, and a rental property that is posted online will have like 200 requests or applicants within a week. And for you to get it, you have to bid and compete and increase the price by yourself, which is weird, you know.
Yeah, and the previous cabinet tried to do some things about um, the amount of investors that were buying up a lot of property and then renting them out. And because of taxation weirdness, it was very cheap for investors to buy, because part of their revenue they got from renting it wasn't taxed, and then it makes it very interesting to buy property as an investment, and then buy affordable homes and then renting them out for a very high price because of what you just mentioned. There's a huge shortage, and then the high rent income isn't very much taxed because of how that is arranged, and then you get a very good return on your investment. And on the one hand, investing and having a return on investment isn't that bad, but if it's mostly because of taxation mishaps, it's not ideal. So you do see that a lot of those homes are being sold off again. But the thing is, there's still a shortage of housing. So it doesn't really change the fact that people still have to be able to buy it. So instead of a high rent, they have a high mortgage now. At least these houses are becoming privately owned instead of owned by a company. But yeah.
I see.
To be honest, I don't know what the solution is. We have a new cabinet, and that's formed from mostly right-winged politicians, like you see happening a lot in Europe, that suddenly the right wing wins because they just blame it on the immigrants, and then the immigrants are not the large group of people owning a house, so blocking the influx of immigrants might be needed for whatever reason they think, but it won't solve the housing crisis. There's no statistic supporting that. So I wonder what they will do to change that, because they, in the advancement to the elections, they said, well, we're going to block all the immigrants and then we're going to solve the housing crisis. But now they are ruling, so now they'll have to do it. Now the actual facts will keep up or catch up with them, and the houses won't be there. So now what are you going to do when there's still no housing and people are still sad? Who are you going to blame next? And then we have the same politicians saying last week, we need to make more babies, because we're making
So where would the babies live?
I don't know. I think like early days in under the bed, traditional like a few hundred years ago Dutch way of storing your babies was under your bed in a drawer. You had a baby drawer just under your bed, so you can fit a lot of babies in one house. Yeah, this particular politician was very worried about the fact that in Africa they have a lot of babies, and in the Netherlands we have not so many babies. So that's a problem. That's stuff we haven't heard for a while, right? But thanks to the right-wing politicians, it's all coming back.
Yeah, they are trying to solve the symptom, but not the problem itself. It's not that people don't want to have babies; they just cannot afford to have babies.
Yeah, well, that's the main thing you see. For example, in discussions online, people say we want to start a family, but we don't have a house. So maybe if people have a home, they will start creating families again. I think the politicians missed out on the fact that this has been happening for around over 10 years now. So you're now gonna see the results of your not doing anything about it, and that's that people are not able to start a family. It's not even that they don't want to. But yeah. Interesting. And this is apart from the whole discussion if we even need more people, but okay, fair enough.
For a country to grow, we definitely need more people.
Yeah.
But not too much that people that are living there cannot survive anymore.
No.
The problem that Japan, for example, is facing right now is underpopulation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And according to the Japanese culture, they overwork. Everybody's always working too much. That and things are also very expensive, so people don't want to start families, and they may not make babies, and the population has been declining. Now they are at the point that it's not recoverable anymore. All of their plans to attract Japanese to get married and have babies was not working because they were focusing on we will pay you to have babies, we will do this, but it doesn't make their life easier. Whatever they pay them is not going to be enough to take care of the babies. It's not going to take away the stress of they get from work.
Yeah, that's something you see happening here also. I think you pointed out that not addressing the root cause, but just focusing on the symptoms will really help. The last few years, there has been a policy going on where they try to make child daycare for free. So if you have kids, you can bring them to daycare, and it wouldn't cost you money. So right now, for me and other parents, it does cost money, and you get some subsidization on it already. So making it free doesn't really change that much, just a little bit cheaper. But um, there are a few underlying things there that you still have to be able to afford having kids and have the place to have kids. But there's also
Yeah.
the question of if you start a family, you don't really you it's yeah you don't really want kids to have other people watch over your kids so you can make money to pay the people that watch your kids, right? So somehow in that logic you can just as well don't work and have kids and then take care of your own kids. But then if you are running a country, you do want people to have kids, not take care of them, and hire people to take care of them, because every time there's a transaction they can tax it.
Yeah,
um,
that's it, yeah.
so the whole cycle, it sometimes feels like we're creating a whole business of uh, people not being the parents, taking care of the duties of the parents, so the parents can make money to pay other people, and in the meanwhile the government is going to be very happy because more people are paying tax. But I think for the well-being for the kid, yeah, not so sure if it's the best or if it's even necessary. Does it? I mean, it has. Uh, it's not bad to have your kid on daycare a couple of days in a week. They play with other kids and they learn social interaction, stuff like that's fine. But yeah,
That should be done when they are a little bit older. And speaking of taxes, and we will talk a little bit of some conspiracy also. I mean, about maybe 50 or 100 years ago, uh, it's only the father that is working in the family. The mom is always home taking care of the family and taking care of the kids.
yeah,
And whatever money that the father makes is enough to take care of the whole family long time ago. Now that is impossible. They've found a way to influence women and tell them they have power to work and make more money and live their life as equal as men. And because of that, women start to work and then they stop taking care of the family so they can make more money from taxing them also. And what do they get from that? Instead of, because they don't have time to take care of the kids, the daycare thing comes in, right? And that's when you see women giving birth and then they give them 3 weeks maternity leave, 1 month, 2 months maternity leave, which is not enough for a baby before you give them up for daycare.
no, I think
So they all,
yeah, Well,
The whole system is a little bit messed up.
like in the Netherlands, you start out with at least 3 months of the paternity leave. But yeah, from a systematic approach, if you have half of the population working and they earn enough to make a living, and you add the other half of the population to work, they make a lot of money. Then you get families with more money to spend, and that in a system where we have the capitalistic system, it automatically means that they will be starting to spend more money on stuff, and
Yeah,
it
inflation.
yeah, and it also means that indeed that the value of your money is becoming less because there is more of it, and you're spending more. Um, so I think, for example, if you would do the thought process of turning it around, if every family, one of the two person stops working and stays at home, they would stop spending the money, and prices will have to drop because no one can afford to pay that much money. So we're
But I, I'm not sure if that is reversible at this point because it's almost impossible to for a family to live off of one salary if they are just starting out.
um yeah. So right now it wouldn't be very uh, convenient to try that theory because indeed you would have a problem. You would probably have to stay with your parents and such. But somewhere along the line, yeah. And the other thing is that the the families with two earning parents, what you see in the Netherlands, I'm not sure how that's going in other countries, but um, they still have a lot of spending power. So usually they will have at least one car. There are like 7 million families in the Netherlands, and there are like around 9 million cars or so. So there are quite a lot of cars. Cars are not cheap, not to operate and not to own, but people can afford it. And the holiday vacation business is booming in the Netherlands. So people are spending more on holidays than ever. So I kind of was surprised by this and waiting until this would end, and then we would have the traditional financial crisis, where people stop spending money, and then there's bankruptcies, and then stock market crash on the Monday morning or whatever. But it isn't happening. Actually, against all odds, the economy of the Netherlands has been growing a little bit last quarter or so. No one kind of expected that. Uh,
I
so
I,
I don't
I
know.
think I think looking at cars might not be enough to check how healthy each family is financially. I think looking at the houses they bought, how many of them have paid off their mortgages before? That will be the real question here.
Yeah.
I think majority, I don't know, just throwing out numbers here, the 80% are still paying their mortgages until they retire.
Yeah, but since like a decade or so, it's, in the Netherlands, if you buy a house, your the interest you pay was deductible from your income tax. So it was very interesting to have a mortgage because it would give you a lot of financial benefits on your taxation. They changed the rules the last like 10 years or so after the financial crisis because we ended up with a lot of people not paying any down payments on their actual mortgage. They only paid the interest on the mortgage, and they just kept the mortgage high. So that's you don't get to deduct it from your income tax anymore if you do that. So you'll have to start paying off your mortgage if you want to deduct it from your income tax, and that means that most of the people nowadays they have start paying off their homes. And the other thing that is a bit of a paper thing of wealth because of the house price increase, if you bought a house like 10 years ago, on paper, in theory, you have become very wealthy. Because the house has increased in price, maybe twofold or so, and you did nothing for it. You just got a theoretical investment output if you sell your house, because then the result of that, selling your house is going to be way more than the mortgage you had. But
if you're gonna buy a new one, you're gonna buy at that new price that you just sold your old house at.
But that's exactly why you have to send me that Norwegian house for like 160K. So I would save a lot of money to buy expensive cucumbers in Norway. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's why it's a theoretical amount of money. You can't do anything with it as long as house prices keep increasing. It's only going to be fun when you die for your kids. They get to inherit.
Yeah, and then they sell it, and then they live with what they want.
And that's going to happen in the Netherlands for the next. I think in many countries where there is a decline in population going on. So we have this gray wave thing, and most of the people in the Netherlands are over 50 years old already. So the next few decades, this generation will start to perish, and then all these houses that were purchased in the 70s and 80s for a very low price, they will be inherited, and I wonder what that will do. Apparently, not so much. Statistically, it's not enough to cover for the amount of houses we need. So
yeah, I was having a discussion with a friend today also, and we were discussing on the same topic, and it just came to my mind how long this problem will go for when it will be resolved. And I was thinking it's going to get worse for the next 20 years or 30 years. And after that, it's going to go really down because, number one, people are not having kids anymore. Those that are having kids are happening at 1 or 2 maximum. So the population globally is on the decline. And when there are a lot of houses and less people to live in there, it's going to be cheaper. But it's not going to be very soon. It's going to be in the next 2 or 3 decades.
Yeah, in the Netherlands, there was a prediction like 10 years ago that it might end up like that as well. But right now, they're not really seeing that happening because the amount of house shortage or the amount of houses we need is way bigger than this. So they don't expect that much of an impact on it. But the problem is that most of this is being affected by policy, and we don't know what kind of policy we'll get. So if this right-winged cabinet thing we have right now is gonna release all the are gonna erase all the issues there are to build houses, we're just gonna flatten everything and just build everywhere and don't worry about any environmental stuff, and we just build like millions of houses, then there will be an abundance, and then house pricing will drop. But that's why I think they won't, because they know that more than half of the population is old and has a home, and they want to cash. They want to, if they know that if they're gonna sell their house or their kids are gonna inherit it, they want it to be valuable. So from a voter-based perspective, ruining the house market is very bad for your political future.
Yeah. I was reading something on Reddit similar to that also with the situation in Canada. And one of the things they pointed out that why they don't want to the prices of housing to reduce in Canada is because they don't want those that bought their houses long time ago to lose on the value of the housing. That's the major part. And also to build new houses, there is a lot of policies and documentation that needs to be approved before you are approved as a developer to build any house here. So you submit your paperwork to build a property. It takes 1, 2, 3 years before you get approval to start building.
Yeah.
So people are not really interested in doing that kind of business.
Yeah, same here. So by the time you start building, you'll have to figure out what the situation is.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. Yeah. Time has flown.
Yeah.
Let's call it a wrap, I think.
Go to the next video.
Okay. Well,
did you record today?
Yeah, I did. So,
okay.
So now let's say bye to our viewers and listeners. Bye, viewers and listeners. See you next week.
I think what we should do next time is probably have a topic.
Yeah.
So it's not just
random talk.
Sometimes you can do some random stuff.
Yeah.
But maybe
we promise to come up with a topic next year. Okay. I'm gonna close off the recording right now. Okay. Bye-bye.